Hello and welcome, and I hope you're well. And welcome to this series on critical thinking. Today we're going to discuss booms and busts. What are they? Why do they occur? The mechanisms behind them and why they're important. Well, why are they important? Well, I wish to argue two things. Generally speaking, they are the way at this stage of human development that people in the world are artificially impoverished. They suffer from the bust aspect. And the boom is, generally speaking, it's a way to get rich quick. And it's a way for populations to, at least for a short amount of time, to have a standard of living above what the natural rate of economic growth would suggest they should have. That's my opinion. Okay, so what's the issue? Well, in any economy, you have what's called a natural rate of economic growth. And why that matters, what that means is that the general wealth of the society increases, and that happens either through new discoveries of land, which doesn't really happen these days, or I think the principal way is through improvements in technology, scientific discoveries, new ways of being efficient, and so on, which means there is more wealth per population to share around, and hopefully share around and not hoard it. And so people become more wealthy, and the standard of living of the world has improved for most people since, say, 100 years ago. The problem if you want to get rich, and what rich means is quite a relative term, but is that the rate of natural economic growth is quite low. It's about 1 or 2% a year. And the reason for that is that the number of discoveries every year isn't that great, and the contribution they make, although important to improving wealth, isn't that high year on year. I mean, it does add up, but it doesn't add up enough to get rich quick. Your investor wants to see a 20% rather than 2% year on year return so that he can get to the Caribbean. He's prepared to wait, a little time, but not 100 years. He wants to get to the Caribbean and the bikinis and the cocktails while he's still relatively young and can enjoy them. So he needs to make super returns on his capital. And one of the ways that this is achieved is through a boom, or investing, which is to invest in a commodity, which could be a natural resource such as gold or iron ore, or a kind of quasi-artificial resource such as mortgages on a house, or dreams such as the internet or the South Seas. And this, you invest at the bottom, and for whatever reason, the value of this commodity booms. It rises exponentially. It might quadruple, and you sell at the top. And what always tends to happen is you get a period of exponential growth where the value of this commodity slowly rises, and then as more and more people see the value rise, they start to invest. And you get exponential growth, and then quite suddenly you get a crash where in a number of months the value is going to reverse, and the price tends to fall just below what the natural rate of economic growth would say was a fair value. And valuing these things, what is the fair value of a commodity, is a very hard thing to do. It's not so hard to work out when the value of a commodity is out of all reasonable proportions to what it could be. And if you happen to be invested in that commodity, you need to sell quickly. Okay, so what happens is you tend to get an idea, and the important thing is this idea tends to be, at least at the beginning, a reasonable idea that's undervalued. So you have some gold in the economy, and it looks like there's going to be inflation. and the value of gold is good as a hedge against inflation. So you buy gold. It's a good idea. You're going to make a profit. Or there's a restriction in the number of houses in Britain. There's not enough space. There are not going to be any more houses built. People need houses. That means the value of rents is going to go up. So it's a sensible thing to buy houses at that point. The problem is, and so people do this, they invest in this, or they invest in copper mines because China is building a lot of infrastructure. They don't tend to realize that China is building infrastructure because of foreign investment, and they're actually building roads to nowhere and building cities full of people that have no empty cities. There are empty towns and roads to nowhere in China because of foreign investment. People are investing in China. And what tends to happen is people start to invest, and then other people see them investing, and they invest too, and the price goes up exponentially. So more and more people invest in China. China needs copper to build its roads to nowhere. So then the price of copper goes up. So people invest in copper. They keep on investing. And the important fact is that quite quickly, the value of this commodity, whatever it is, China or copper or whatever, rises above what could possibly be any logical return on the investment. But people no longer care. The reason for the investment switches. It's a feeding frenzy now. People invest because other people are investing and the price is going up of the commodity. Right? It's a surefire bet, and it no longer matters what the original reason was, and people can only vaguely understand that it's about restriction in housing supply or inflation for gold or improvements in Chinese economy. It's only vaguely clear. All that matters is the price is going up. It's a surefire bet. So what happens then is the price of the commodity is now relatively high. And so people don't have enough money to buy the commodity. They still want to buy it because it's going up. And so what they do is they borrow money to buy the commodity, to buy the gold. And they reason, well, or to buy the house. And, they reason, well, the price is going up. And so, they buy the house, the buy-to-let. I'm going to buy-to-let. Even though I'm only going to get 5% return on all the work I have to do doing up the house, that it doesn't really matter. That's a secondary reason. That what I'm interested in is the value of the house is going to continue to rise, the capital. And so I borrow money, and I'll be able to pay back the interest somehow by the rising capital. The price of the house will keep on going up. And of course, it doesn't. The people at the bottom, once the graph is at its exponential height, the savvy investors say, well, it's time to go to Caribbean. And they sell their large holdings and they make a handsome profit and they walk away. And if they're unlucky, they might get, if they're the owner of a bank or something, chief executive, they might have to go to a commission and look a bit shamefaced and so on and lose their knighthood. What a shame. They look downcast and then they go off to the Caribbean, or the owner of the copper mine makes his excuses to the shareholders with a sad face and then goes off to comfortable retirement and so on. So what happens is that the people at the bottom, they sell and they make their profits and the price drops. And then people realize, the institutional investors realize, well, the owners are selling. What do they know? Right? And they start to sell because they've borrowed money, right? They need to make their interest payments. And then you tend to get, more and more people see the price falling. They have to sell. And people sell because the original idea is gone. The price is no longer rising. It's falling. And then they start to try to value the commodity they've got, the gold. And what is this really? It's a hedge against inflation. Yeah, but even if it is, so what? The value of it is just way above what could possibly justify it. And at this point, you get a whole range of scandals coming out of these companies that have done these crazy deals, paying way over the odds for things, and all this stuff starts to come out of the woodwork, and you get a collapse in the price of commodities. And it tends to fall just below the natural rate of growth would justify for the price of the commodity. And actually, at a bust is the right time to buy commodities when things are people tend to panic sell, and things tend to fall below. You tend to get a real bargain at that point. That's the time to buy things. But most people don't buy in a depression because everything's you have these bargains staring you in the face, and people will still not buy, but they will buy at the very top because everyone else is, and this is the sort of way people are. So you get this crash, and the problem is, the investors lose their money and hurt, but the real problem is marginal people will really get whacked through no fault of their own. They're at the mercy of these cycles which have nothing to do with them. They're just, people in Africa or India are just trying to make a living, and the poor guy who, is pulling a rickshaw all day, and he finds that his middle class people will no longer pay for the ride, no longer has chapatis to eat. He's no longer got anything to eat because he's not getting that $1 a day anymore. And so the result of that is human tragedy. And so that's why this matters. And what can we conclude? Well, the first thing is this process is that people learn nothing. These processes happen again, time and time again, and the memory spans of people is minuscule. Right? At the beginning, we've just come out of a recession. We're starting to get economic growth again. But the fundamental assumptions are not challenged by the politicians and the leadership. They'll presumably just quite happily allow economic growth to take off again, and there will be some bubble that is blown up, and the same mistakes will happen again, time and time again, just as they always have for hundreds of years. So the general people learn nothing. What matters is the ordinary person on the street, that the savvy person has to try to become aware of this, and perhaps if they can, order their life so that they're not caught out and burnt. And as for people in Nepal, I think their answer is to, invest in Kalashnikovs in India and so on, and try and create a fairer society. But we don't do that in the West. Anyway, so booms and busts. Thank you very much.